Excellent. An ale for me. And for my officers. In fact, ales for everyone.
10 backwards. Rick and Wick. And Will. Sometimes Demmer.
Oh, yes.
Hello and welcome to 10 Backward, a Star Trek podcast from the UK featuring me, Will Turland, this lady to my left, Gemma Turland.
Hello.
This man to my further left, Rick Emerson.
Hello.
And this man opposite me, Rick Palmer.
Hey, hey.
Today we're going to be talking about what is considered to be one of the finest ever episodes of Star Trek the original series.
Spock's brain.
I know, Rick. Although I imagine we will end up doing an episode on Pod's brain.
Pod's brain. Oh, can we rename the whole podcast?
But we're going to be talking about City on the Edge of Forever, which is a great episode of the original series. And
sorry, I'm just making a lot of noise.
You are rightfully papers.
I didn't know why is Rick doing his paperwork?
So how should we do this? Should we talk about the episode and then how it might have been intended to be?
Start.
Or do you want to? Should we start with the intended version and then what we saw?
A question. I've waited long eons for a question. Oh no.
How about we just go through the episode and then how it was maybe intended to be with Harlan Ellison? Because I guess we chose this episode because Harlan Ellison passed away recently.
We did, yes.
yeah, but it's fair to say that the episode Harlan Ellison wrote isn't exactly what we see on screen.
No,
It's a great story in terms of what happens from the concept of a story to what you see on screen, and the kind of the deal making and the kind of the brokering you have to do within the TV industry to get a TV episode made.
Yeah.
For anybody out there that considers and wants to be a TV writer for a TV show, it's tough. It's really tough.
Well, I think it's one of the key moments in a long tradition of Star Trek stories being rewritten by Gene Roddenberry.
He apparently had that written into his contract, I think, with the studio.
Yeah.
That he would get if a story had to be rewritten, he would get more money.
Yeah, Harlan Ellison is by far not the only writer to be very cross at the rewrites that are taken on, put onto his. Yeah. But he is one of the most famously cross about it, I think.
Should we get into the episode? Just as it stands.
It feels like it makes sense to go through the episode and then sort of talk about how it could have been different. I think that feels like the sort of logical.
Yeah.
We're all about logic here.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, we're all about getting the listener in on our process.
Yeah.
We could have done this before.
We could have discussed this.
A more efficient podcast might have sorted out before.
But we liked them to know.
Yeah, we're cracking open the door of creativity and letting you see how. See how great minds put together a feat of genius.
Right then, so we start on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
There's they're being hit by distortion waves, I believe.
Yes, we're straight into the action.
Yeah.
And then?
And who's injured? Sulu's
injured. Console explodes?
Yeah.
It was acting funny and then it exploded.
Yeah.
So it's not what the consoles are supposed to do. So it's kind of funny.
He had like a big the emoji with the face going and came up.
So Dr. McCoy comes onto the bridge with a massive syringe packed full of an incredibly potent substance.
Cordrazine.
Yeah. Just a few drops would.
There's a line where
tricky stuff.
Kirk says,
like, "Whoa,
careful, Bones."
Yeah, it's tricky stuff.
Better risk a few drops of cordrazine. It's tricky stuff. Are you sure you want to risk?
It's tricky.
Bones is like, "Fuck off."
Yeah, I'm the doctor.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
I'm a doctor, not a doctor.
But for some reason, even though really only a few drops would be needed, what McCoy's done is he's filled a massive entire syringe absolutely full of this tricky stuff. And then
To be fair, he administers the right amount.
Yeah,
to
he
Sulu.
does his job. Yeah.
But what was he? And then I guess he's going to squirt the rest back into the bubble.
Well, no, that's like his lifetime supply. That's
Ah,
all you
okay.
ever need in this tube here. Be wise with it.
Yeah, when he gets the supply, he's like, well, I may as well just fill the entire needle
Exactly.
up because I know how to administer it, and nothing's gonna. What's gonna happen?
What's going to happen?
And I can clean the needle every time. It's fine.
Yeah.
So then
Needles in the past, shared needles in the past were a thing, but now in the future, shared needles are cool.
Yeah. There's no needle. There's no skin penetration. It's future hypos.
So
And then
Anyway.
it falls over.
so yeah. Then he basically trips over his shoelaces and lands.
There's a
lands
really
on
big,
his-
there's a really big space distortion that shakes the
Yeah.
craft, and he stabs himself in the stomach with this needle, and then all hell
Dumps
breaks
the
loose.
entire supply of cordrazine into himself.
and
It's all sweaty.
he gets sweaty and goes mad.
Yeah, he turns
starts-
into
Assassins!
like a version of a cross between John McClane and Austin Powers, I think.
Killers! Assassins! I won't let you! I'll kill you first! I won't let you!
Serious paranoia.
I do wonder how good that cordrazine stuff is because he can throw off Spock's grasp when everyone tries. Spock's like super mega strong, and the series has made frequent reference to that.
His false teeth almost come out because he's like, assassins! He's really chewing the scenery.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
he goes for it. He goes for it.
I do actually love. He charges to the back of the bridge. The turbo lift opens, and the guy is just about to come out. He's suddenly grabbed by McCoy and chucked across to slam into everyone else. And the confusion and surprise on the guy's face is priceless. It's an amazing expression.
He maybe didn't even realise they were filming.
Do you think that's one of those alien moments where they don't tell the cast what's going to happen?
So you're just going to come out of the turbo lift and then walk across the back. Suddenly, sweaty McCoy grabs you.
So after this, they're after him, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then there's a great scene where
He cunningly evades everyone.
Yeah,
On this
and he
ship.
somehow manages to make
Even
it
though
to a
he's
train.
In his sweaty, shouty madness, he's completely undetectable.
Yeah, and he does an incredible double judo chop.
Oh, yeah.
judo chop.
Who would have thought punching someone in the stomach and then the back would knock them unconscious?
He's so fast though. So fast.
He's a brilliant doctor. He knows all the points of the
Yeah.
body that can knock you
Knows
out, even the ones
practically-
we've never even heard of.
Yeah, that guy
He goes down.
crumples.
Yeah.
Then he's like, "Do I make you randy, baby? Do I make you horny?"
This is not,
He doesn't say that. It isn't
He-
one.
this is not the version I remember.
This is the original version.
Yes. Because of the judo chop, you know. Anyway, so
I'm fairly sure if we put our minds to it, we could rewrite it in a way that Harlan Ellison would actually enjoy the original episode a lot more
I
compared
think
to ours.
we could
his
hang
ghost,
him
yeah,
far
Harlan
more.
Ellison's ghost is spinning in his grave at this. Well, maybe he's not. I don't know. Anyway, what happens next? He goes down to the planet,
Yes.
and I guess they follow him down to the planet, and it turns out there's
Yeah, there's a really bit where he really cunningly hides behind a small rock. And
yeah, baby, yeah, baby, yeah. That's what he said.
the guys almost see him, but
Okay.
if they'd have just looked properly, they would
Yeah,
have seen
he's
him.
the worst search party. They just walk in a straight line.
Yeah.
Look right, left, don't look behind rocks. And he evades them.
And they get
Until he
bird.
launches himself at them.
So they beam down, and there's this kind of the remains of an ancient civilization. And Kirk says he says something like the ruins stretch to the horizon, or something like that.
Yeah.
So cool.
And there's this big, very cool. And there's this big, super kind of space television,
Yeah.
Time donut.
like a time
Yes.
donut.
Glowy, talky thing.
Will, you take the story forward.
So what's the name of the? Is it
The Guardian of Forever.
Guardian of Forever. So he's sort of he speaks very cryptically and in riddles, and he basically is an incredibly powerful, perhaps piece of machinery.
There's a line.
I think
Kirk
that's
Both, yes.
Does Kirk
yeah.
say, "Are you being or machine?" He says,
I am both, and neither. I am my own beginning, my own ending.
Kirk's like,
"I am not a. But I tell you what, I am not. I am not a television."
But he, so the Guardian of Forever is able to show newsreel footage from Earth history.
Yeah, Guardian of Forever is kind of stuck on the History Channel.
Yeah, but he can show it in that set order and in that set pace. He can't make any change. Confusingly,
Me and Will were talking about this. The Guardian of Forever is kind of like if you have Spotify, but you don't have the level of Spotify where you can play whatever you want on your mobile phone. So I've got Spotify on my mobile phone, but I can't choose what I play. I can just suggest an artist, and my phone will play a playlist based on that artist. So I have Spotify. I think I have Spotify Premium, and you can get Spotify Unlimited. So I think the Guardian of Forever is like Spotify Premium.
I've got premium and I can play whatever I like.
What's-
I've got it on offer at the moment.
What's
I can get rid
what's
of it.
below Premium?
I think that's the free membership where you literally.
Yeah.
No, I've got the middle one then.
Oh.
So it's
Spotify
free.
scumbag.
So the Spotify Scumbag where you don't, where it's free, and then there's Spotify Middle, and then Spotify Premium. So I've got Spotify Middle.
I liken it as well to a thing that they had back in the olden days called an iPod Shuffle, where you basically put all your music on an iPod, but you couldn't really choose what you listened to or in what order you wanted to hear it.
That's a better analogy.
So I agree with
Or the Guardian. There's no remote control for the Guardian of Forever.
It's,
Yeah.
it's just stuck on. Yeah. The volumes to mute.
Yeah.
It's just playing.
Yeah.
History Channel at speed.
and Spock starts taping it on his tricorder. He says the word taping.
And he says, "Oh, what am I doing? I could be taping this."
yeah, this is brilliant.
He's a hipster. He's a hipster,
It's
right?
like
Like he likes old school technology, I suppose.
Yeah.
Gets out one of his old VHS tapes.
Well, if he's that
Spock
hipster,
stuff.
it's Betamax.
Yeah. And then McCoy just jumps out and just runs straight into the donut and disappears.
It's a nice effect. It's a nice kind of slow down effect.
Yeah. So
I like that the Guardian has 3 steam pipes set in the top to shoot steam down when people jump through as well.
Yeah. It's like when people go on Stars in their Eyes.
Yes.
So then, I mean, a lot.
Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to disrupt the flow of history.
I'm going back to the 1930s.
So a lot's happened in this episode already,
and
then
busy.
yeah, bam. History has changed. The Enterprise is no longer there.
They can't. Yeah, they can't. They try to contact the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's not there.
And something has changed. The flow of history has changed.
So
and they have
the
to
flow
go.
of history has changed, but not on that planet.
I'm just guessing. Is it that because they're in the vicinity of the space
They're in a
donut, they're
bubble.
protected
Yeah, I think they're kind
by
of
changes
shielded.
to the space time?
I'll go with that.
That's just
That's
standard
usually how it
sci-fi
works, yeah.
bullshit.
Or sometimes the changes take time to catch up with you. In series like The Flash is a series where they've altered time, and altered time takes time to kind of catch up with you.
Like in Back to the Future,
Yeah,
they slowly
that-
fade from a photo over the course of days.
That brings up a conversation you and I had, Will. At what point did history change? Was because you were saying that history changed with McCoy going through,
Yeah.
and I said but he's not the one who actually did or didn't save her.
Well, he did in the original.
But did he?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's two
But you
different.
don't know that.
Well, he saved the.
Well,
He
that's
saved
what the
the.
episode says.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
but what if history actually changed with what's his face?
I don't know.
Spock?
No, the other
Kirk.
one. Kirk. Yeah, that guy. What if
Brilliant.
it was always going to be Kirk who made that decision to save her or not save her?
Well,
because
but it was McCoy.
But it was
going
McCoy
back
that going
changed.
back that brought Kirk into the past.
But Spock
okay.
identifies that Edith Keeler dying is the event that shouldn't
Yeah.
He
happen.
does, but he also sees the two different timelines, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So at
But-
that point, there are still two different timelines.
But
they-
it's the point where McCoy goes into the time donut where everything changes. Oh, but yeah, but I see what you're saying. So could it have been because the point where he goes in, then the fact that Kirk and Spock are going to follow is kind of like it's sort of a given.
yeah.
So maybe it could be that Kirk was always destined to change history, or
But then they go back and the Enterprise is there, so they experience the Enterprise not being there. So something has happened that they're not involved in.
No,
It sounds like this is getting back to what was that yesterday's Enterprise episode.
I was just thinking, if either any of you go for the blackboard, I'm going to have an intervention.
But yeah, let's. I think we should, for the sake of
carry on with the.
So yeah, something has changed, and it's established that then Kirk and Spock are gonna go. They're gonna try and jump into the space donut at exactly the time that they think McCoy has jumped into it, and they're gonna go back in time and stop whatever he's done. And that's basically
That's pretty difficult. It's like trying to fast forward on your TiVo, get it exactly right for the ad break.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which is tough.
One question: how did they go back before he jumped in?
They asked the Guardian to rerun history again.
Right.
Over.
Okay.
So he
Right, yeah.
basically sort of stopped it and then pressed play again, and he
Yeah.
can't do it. He can't change
They
the
just
pace
have
of
to-
it. Or,
yeah.
So I'm guessing that the Guardian of Forever kind of runs at about 1.21 gigawatts, right? and Kirk and Spock have to run in at 88 miles an hour, right? And this is time travel rules, I guess.
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So they do that. Marty.
And then
If the Guardian of Forever had like a crazy kind of grey wig on top, and that would be funny. Anyway.
so they end up back in the 30s.
In New York City.
And within about 5 minutes of arriving in the 30s, Kirk and Spock are, from the United Federation of Planets. They're
pinnacle
ethically and morally highly evolved.
Paragons of virtue.
Yeah.
They immediately do a robbery and assault a policeman. Like within about 5 minutes. It's like, come
But
on,
it's not like
no other option.
it's clothes theft and a Vulcan neck
it's
pinch.
clothes in the 30s when that could have been that guy's work clothes. That was his only set of good clothes, and he would go out to do
True,
his-
but
He was
his-
fired.
if
he
they
was
hadn't
fired.
changed, it to them, they would have been clearly marked out as spacemen. They have to you have to. I mean,
They didn't moralise. They just saw clothes and took them though.
he went for clothes that were way up.
on a line.
How far do I? Yeah, I don't know if
It was
would have
middle.
been-
It was the middle of the.
But in those days, high up was for the poor people.
But what time of day was it? Maybe I don't know.
I'm not sure that it would marked out as
Could have been a
spacemen, just
Sunday.
guys in like really bright, colourful jumpers.
I think I'm playing Devil's Aqueduct for Kirk and Spock.
There's all water under the bridge.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean.
Comedy.
But they need to kind of get into the clothes at the time, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
they get themselves into a bit of mischief, though, and they do assault a
We
police.
do. There's no question about that.
I do love actually the thing where Kirk starts it off and he's like, "Oh no, how careless of you to go out with that on that thread loose," and Spock immediately
He's
picks up
right
and
in
runs
there.
with it.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, of
Yeah.
course, let me help you with that," and he's like, knocks the guy out. It's like that's the teamwork there that's between them is incredible.
Oh, well, there is a bit in this sequence which is perhaps dated a little bit, where the policeman isn't sure what Spock is,
And Kirk says like my
he's-
friend is
Obviously,
clearly
Chinese.
Chinese.
and he said he has an accident.
With a mechanical
when he
rice
was a
picker.
child with a mechanical rice. It basically got his ears trapped in a mechanical rice picker, and it stretched his ears.
My friend is obviously Chinese. I see you've noticed the ears. They're actually easy to explain.
Perhaps the unfortunate accident I had as a child.
The unfortunate accident he had as a child. He caught his head in a mechanical rice picker.
I don't know. It's not the most racist thing that Star Trek's ever done.
No.
But you wouldn't maybe necessarily get it in a sort of more modern episode of Star Trek.
It's a line of its time, isn't it? I mean, I think we have to. This film was. I mean, this episode was made in the late '60s, like 1967, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an awkward line now,
It
but
is.
we're looking at it now from a position where we're.
Yeah. And as Will says, it's not the worst line in Star Trek for that, in those lines.
No, I mean, it's not even. I mean, it's ahead of its time in terms of worst lines, I suppose.
And I suppose if you wanted to justify it in some headcanon, you could say, well, Kirk's knowledge of that era suggested that this would be an acceptable explanation.
Yeah.
For policeman.
Do you know how to get past authority theory? Throw a bit of racism at them.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
they'll respond to that.
To be fair, I mean, in all honesty, if you dropped like a droopy moustache and a silk robe on Spock, he would look like Fu Manchu.
Ooh.
He would. Like, come on, he would.
No, just the way you chose Fu Manchu there.
But Fu Manchu
also,
is.
no. To be fair, I mean, off the time, it you know.
I was at an event recently in London, the London 14 Society, and there was a book stand, and they had a book about a guy called Sax Rohmer, who I think he might have invented the character of Fu Manchu, and it was and he invented it at a time there was it was called Chinophobia, I think. I think that Britain had a. I mean, he wrote the Fu Manchu character in I would say the early 20th century. I think that kind of. I think China was pretty mysterious to the West for a long period of time. There was a big deal when President Nixon went to China in the early 70s. So I guess kind of culturally, that idea of China is just it's kind of like a.
Well, it was the other, wasn't it?
It was exactly like that. It was just an idea about the unknown that they kind of riffed on in that episode. I mean, not to go back to One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, which we mentioned a few times on this podcast, but that was made in 1971, I think.
It was a great film. I love that film.
It's got
its issues.
It's not shown on TV so much.
No, but it's
because of the horrendous racism. But
the Chinophobia, yeah. But
no, yeah. I mean, it was China was. Yeah, it was the other, and it yeah, I can see how in the context of that statement would have worked.
But anyway, I mean, I guess we shouldn't get too
moving on from that.
So they run down some. Kirk and Spock go on the run. They run down some stairs into a basement
of a mission. Like is it 21st Street mission?
Yeah.
And they're kind of hiding down there, and they meet
Jane Collins.
They meet the sister that runs that mission, Sister Edith.
Is she
no,
a
Edith
sister though?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So.
Well, but because she starts a romantic relationship, she at one point she calls him her young man.
She was doing it for herself, and that's what sisters do.
I
is she a lay sister?
Yes.
No jokes.
I wasn't. I wasn't.
No, I was.
I
was in there. Yeah.
I think missions are started by the church, I think, aren't they? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyway.
Oh,
so she meets.
Definitely a religious.
So they meet Edith Keeler.
Mm.
And they kind of they make a little bit of a they kind of bend the truth.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
A lie is a poor way to say hello, I believe she says.
Yeah, she's not buying their. She's not buying.
She's not buying their BS.
No.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Well, she basically
employs
lets
them,
them.
doesn't she?
Yeah, ultimately she ends up giving them
Yeah.
a little bit of work out, so some help out around there. Kirk ends up getting a bit more work, doesn't he? I think.
So they work. So yeah, I think they both work 10 hours a day for 15 cents an hour, and they rent somewhere for $2 a week. A flop. For $2 a week.
Yeah, Spock's really confused over what's a flop.
One of the things in this episode that's really fun is they play with a lot of the slang and the language. And Spock's basically wandering through this episode going, I don't know what the fuck any of you are talking about.
There are points in the middle section of City of the Edge of Forever plays out like a sitcom I would love to watch.
Yeah.
Like two guys from the future back in the 30s trying to get back.
One of them trying to work on his radio hobby.
Exactly. Like Spock's always on about that, isn't he, in this episode?
I need radio tubes and so forth, my hobby.
Kirk's like, look, I bought some bread. And Spock's like,
I need radio tools!
Where's my tubes?
Yeah, what's it? I need platinum.
Glass tubes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kirk's trying to explain that they've got a really shitty job.
So
not getting a lot of money. Platinum's not going to be hard to.
But like after their first day of work, there Spock and Kirk are they're having some soup and bread, and then Edith, she kind of gets up on a little platform and talks to them.
Right, one of the guys there he's like, oh, you know, it's all right coming here and getting free food, but you have to listen to this.
But he's like,
I know how else she could help us out.
And Kirk's like, shut up.
Yeah.
So he's alright, yeah. But then Edith Keeler kind of has this little sort of speech, I guess.
Yeah.
About the future, and I guess should we just listen to that?
Yeah, let's play that clip.
One day soon, man is going to be able to harness incredible energies, maybe even the atom. Energies that could ultimately hurl us to other worlds in some sort of spaceship. And the men that reach out into space will be able to find ways to feed the hungry millions of the world and to cure their diseases. They will be able to find a way to give each man hope and a common future. And those are the days worth living for.
So to me, like, that speech is kind of a little, it's almost like a little summation of what the Federation is going to be.
I know, yeah.
Like she's describing Star Trek.
I felt like it was a little on the nose.
A little.
Yeah.
But I liked it. It almost made her seem like you were saying, like a visionary, like somebody, like somebody who genuinely sees the future, like a prophet almost.
Yeah, I think there was an element of that. Yeah.
But I didn't mind that. It's just I didn't get the sense. I didn't get the sense that speech was written to affect just a character seeing the future. I genuinely got the sense that this was
I'm not sure. I think that may have worked better if you'd have found out that Bones had arrived earlier and had been, I don't know, ranting in his sleep or something. And
he would have just been saying murderers and assassins though, with his false teeth falling out.
Maybe he chilled out a little bit. But to me, it just seemed so on the nose, so out from nowhere, that she was basically describing the Federation.
I think,
and it to me it was a bit clunky, and it would have worked better if it had been not the idea that someone could have come up with these ideas, but maybe if it wasn't quite as precise.
It's so precise, isn't it? Like, I can see she's talking about spaceships and going out to other worlds and harnessing the power of.
I feel that's why Kirk falls in love with her though, because they're in the Great Depression, nobody's got optimism, nobody's got hope, but she does. And not only she got optimism and hope, she's actually working towards doing better things. So I think Kirk goes back to this time of great misery and finds this one bright spot of someone who could exist in his world because she expects it. I do get what you mean. It is almost too precise, though. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit too on the nose.
But in a way, it's important in the story that idea has come from her because it's McCoy coming back in time that's changed history, but it's her. It's sort of her. If she survives, then it's her idea that sort of.
It's a fantastic example of the right idea at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Really, isn't it?
And that's pretty much. There's a line where Spock pretty much says that, isn't it? Where
he stole it from me after listening to this podcast.
Did he?
I'm fairly sure he did.
That makes sense. But yeah, I think Kirk says she's got the right idea, and Spock says, but at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And which really sums it up. So.
And Spock's like, we gotta repair the clock tower. Marty. He doesn't do that.
No. But so there's a conceit that Spock is trying to build some equipment to be able to get to read the recording on the tricorder, and
he becomes Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
I'm slightly confused as to why he can't just use that little screen on the tricorder and why it needs special. But
I have to admit, at this point, I get confused. Like I imagine that the information he needs is on his tricorder, but he can't access it without some kind of power supply. So he's building his power supply.
It's like if you've taken a phone back in time, but you've
back in time. Sorry.
So how do you power it up and access it? And maybe that's it. But why does he need all those?
Well, you don't need money.
Why do you need all the?
You don't need money. You don't need fame.
You don't need no mnemonic memory circuit to ride this train.
You just need the power of love. Hey, he does have the power of love, doesn't he? So does Kirk's power of love? Does that fuel Spock's?
I don't think that's what happens.
It does. Wait a minute. Are we on something here?
I think we are. I think we've uncovered the hidden meaning. No. Thanks to Huey Lewis and the News.
But he doesn't need a credit card to ride this train. Right?
It's strong and it's sudden. It can be cruel sometimes. But it might just save your life. That's the power of love. That's the power of love.
So we're on somewhat of a tangent, but the amount of times I have selected The Power of Love on jukeboxes or anything like that and been utterly disappointed by that really slow, maudlin, annoying song and not the Huey Lewis and is uncalculable.
I usually go to Hip to Be Square, I have to admit.
I love Hip to Be Square, yeah. No, that's, Anyway, okay.
So, anyway, Spock discovers through by accessing his tricorder, he discovers that there are two possible.
Oh, what is he using?
Stone knives and bearskins.
Stone knives and bearskins.
Exactly.
Stone knives and bearskins. Yeah. But he discovers there's two possible sort of flows of time. Either Edith Keeler is killed in a car accident, which he sees in a newspaper article, which I guess he's taped off the Space Donut, although you don't see any newspaper articles in the Space Donut in the episode, so I don't know.
Is it like when they're looking through microfiche and it's going really, 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 really fast, and they go, hang on a minute, and scroll back, and that's the exact. So is that basically what he's just done?
I think so.
It's like when you get angry and knock a load of photographs off your desk, and then you see the
one. Yeah.
But in the Space Donut, you don't see any newspaper.
No. Well, largely you just saw Romans and cowboys.
Yeah,
to be
you
fair.
did.
Well, that donut, he loves historical movies.
But he also sees another outcome where Edith Keeler survives. Yeah, and she's meeting the president. But then it turns out that would be the bad future, because then then, which is an interesting idea, because then pacifism would take hold, and it would mean that the Americans wouldn't join World War II, and Hitler would win World War II, and the Nazis would rule the earth, and the Federation would never come to be.
Genuine fears in America in the 30s.
And that would spawn the mirror universe.
I thought that too.
Oh, wait a minute, that's interesting. Oh, maybe it would. Yeah. Oh.
She is the
Edith Keeler's the
fulcrum.
Yeah.
Blimey, that's a scary. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
There were rumours there were a plan to assassinate FDR in the 30s because of these similar fears. Big business people were planning to kind of assassinate FDR. It's called the business plan.
Okay.
But didn't happen.
So I really like this sort of idea. It's sort of it's a really interesting idea that kind of pacifism and the whole kind of idea of this sort of utopian future. If it came at the wrong time, in a time when actually action was needed and war was the right choice in hindsight, then it could actually make history play out worse, and it could be a bad thing.
Well, in the late 30s, kind of Britain met Hitler in Berlin, didn't they? And kind of there was like an agreement in Berlin in the late 30s to kind of like a non-aggression deal, I think, when the Nazis were starting to kind of annex the Sudetenland and stuff. So.
Yeah, it wasn't that Chamberlain's famous piece of paper that Hitler definitely wouldn't invade any other places, because appeasement was the order of the day there.
And they did like a pinky swear on it, so definitely.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm totally good for this now.
Is that the same pinky?
If you heard anything about the Jews, I think they're great. But yeah, you're up. But you make a really good point. It's interesting that pacifism could lead to the conquering of the world.
Yeah, and it's a pretty dark idea, but I liked it, and I like this is just sort of one of the ideas that comes up in the episode, but it's definitely something to think about.
Pacifism.
It is.
It's at the right time.
It's the house of cards that our history is built on, isn't it? You put the wrong idea at the wrong time, and the whole thing comes tumbling down.
Yeah.
So you don't tread on any damn butterflies when you go back in time.
Yeah, as long as
or you can say things, because we have had fascist world. I mean, look at the Romans. Look at Genghis Khan. Look at
America right
now.
now.
Depiction of America right now. Things do eventually come to an even keel, and then they go off again. And then
it's dependent on the people, isn't it? Regimes are as good as the person that's in charge of them. I would say. Like Rome was. Rome was pretty peaceful for a while, and then it just kind of went to S. Rome was a republic for a while, and then it just didn't. It broke down.
But it wasn't all of a sudden. It was like over a few hundred years. It just gradually.
Pax Romana. There was Pax Romana where things are pretty good for. Yeah. But society is probably as good as the person that's in charge of it. So. Anyway.
So in the city in The Edge of Forever,
Yes.
It turns out that then Kirk is presented with kind of a pretty tough moral choice, in that he either has to he has the option of saving Edith Keeler from a car accident, which I imagine this would work as an episode of Quantum Leap as well, and potentially that wrecks future history, or he lets her die, and that restores future history.
He's essentially bequeathed godlike powers, which no person can really handle. It's not. It's such an unfair thing to ask of a person.
Yeah.
You're essentially saying you have the ability to completely change reality if you want to.
Yeah.
And
I guess
no one can. No, I don't think a human being can really deal with that. And there's a great scene as well where they're at their apartment building and she trips on a stair rod and he catches her.
And then the look he shares with Spock there is actually one of those things about the way Kirk and Spock interact.
Yeah.
Because so much is said with this one look between them. It's just like Spock's just like, you might have just fucked up history, you dick.
Yeah.
And Kirk's like, shit.
Doesn't he? She could have died there.
Yeah. She could have died there, Kirk.
Idiot.
Come
Stop
on.
catching women you're falling downstairs.
But surely he could have said, "Look, Spock, no newspaper's going to report woman dies on the stairs."
Yeah.
Not even in the 30s.
Fairly sure you said
when everyone was
car accident.
Everyone was terrified of stairs. Like stairs were the Al Qaeda of the 30s. They terrorist stairs blowing things up.
So then McCoy shows up.
Murderers! Assassins!
Hey, and
He's so crazy.
a man dies in a pretty horrific.
Yeah.
Vaporizes himself with McCoy's phaser.
I read that scene was cut from like some versions, and then it was kind of restored later on DVD. I think when it was first released on video, that scene was cut.
So when this happens, in the course of vaporizing himself with does the phaser also vaporize?
It seems to, yeah.
What an odd function.
Well, it overloads, doesn't it? That's
how I interpret it.
To be fair, we see that quite a lot in Star Trek. Someone using a phaser overload.
It's odd that
I don't know. Phaser overloads are normally
a design fault.
Phaser overloads are normally kaboom, massive explosion. Because in Conscience of the King, when the North Korean plants a phaser on overload near Kirk's quarters, they say it can take out like 2 or 3 decks. Whereas, so you would suggest the big hole in a series of buildings.
Yeah.
So, but it wouldn't be the first time that a piece of technology is inconsistently portrayed in Star Trek. So, probably not going to dwell too much on it.
Yeah.
It was a minor point, but yes, a guy died. So that was apparently he was not important.
No,
his death delays no entry to World War or anything like that.
Stealing some milk and ended badly for him. But McCoy's back in time.
Yeah, and he hangs out a bit with Edith Keeler and he gradually gets less nutty and more like regular McCoy. He has a nice cup of tea and it calms down.
Nobody questions his clothing that much.
No. Again, makes you think: Did
Kirk need to steal? At most, he needs a hat to cover Spock's ears.
Yeah. And then we quite quickly get to the point where Kirk is presented with this sort of moral quandary.
Yeah.
I mean,
have they just been to see a film?
Is it a Clark Gable movie?
And then they're just having a chat, and she mentions Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, it's literally McCoy. He gets excited. Spock's suddenly there. McCoy suddenly is really bang. Really quick suddenly happening.
Dr. McCoy said the same thing.
McCoy? Leonard McCoy?
Yes. He's in the mission.
Stay right here. Spock! Stay right there. What is it? McCoy, he's
And then they're all reunited, and suddenly that's the moment. This thing kind of thing, would she have had any reason to cross that road? Would she even have been out if she hadn't been to see a film with Kirk?
Yeah.
Because she was always apparently destined to die in a car accident. But I see external influences of the Enterprise crew there, causing her to A, be out and about at that road, near that road at that point, and B, need to cross that road at that point.
But would she have gone to see that film? But then she turned back, didn't she? She turned back to cross.
I suppose there could have been any other number of reasons. Yeah. We probably don't want to get too caught up in the
So
time.
yeah.
But we could.
Oh, we easily could.
And it's a great scene, and Kirk obviously he has the opportunity to save her life, and he doesn't do, and it's pretty heartbreaking. He has to just let her die.
Yeah.
And McCoy doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's like, why have you let this woman die? What's the... And Spock says some kind of lie. I can't remember what it... It's something cool.
He knows, Doctor.
Yeah, that's it.
He knows, Doctor. He knows.
And they go through, and then they just...
Then they go home.
One thing that confused me is how do they get... But they just get
It's like the
back
Guardian
home.
just will retrieve you at the appropriate time.
Is it because the anomaly has been resolved?
Yeah,
It's
you've
Quantum
completed,
Leap.
or like in
Sam's ready to-
the Crystal Maze, so you've completed the challenge in the locked room.
I think ultimately the Guardian is an intelligent sentient being, and has a measure of like.
Or am I?
It's time to. You've done what you meant to do. Time to come home.
Yeah,
Pull you
sometimes
back.
like the Guardian of Forever will just be playing like a mouth organ, talking about its mother. Going like, mother never let a woman die in the 1930s. Oh, Guardian of Forever.
If you haven't watched the Crystal Maze, this is a really confusing part of our podcast.
Yeah. A lot of our podcast is pretty confusing.
In contrast to the rest of this podcast.
We've referenced a few non-Star Trek things in this podcast already, haven't we? So it's fine.
So we get to the end of the episode, and they find the Enterprise is there, and they just beam up and go home. And I was a bit like, oh, okay. So what do they do about this potentially incredibly dangerous space donut?
Incredibly dangerous. If
like-
the Romulans got hold of it,
Or the Klingons.
yeah.
I mean, and who knows? Are they going to leave like a warning sort of buoy in orbit?
Destroy it.
Warn people? Or should they have destroyed it? Or...
Oh, you are forgetting your canon. In the animated series, apparently research teams regularly use it to just bounce around through time.
Captain's log, stardate 5373.4. We are in orbit around the planet of the time vortex, the focus of all the timelines of our galaxy. Our mission is to assist a team of historians in the investigation of Federation history.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems pretty irresponsible.
It does a little bit, yeah. And in fact, the animated series episode in question does deal with a sudden issue of a change in time. So it's an excellent episode, though, and we should probably all watch it. And yes, it's amazing.
Okay.
Absolute highlight of the animated series. But yeah, I think it's widely accepted that the Federation puts some teams on there to sort of research it all, and hopefully classifies it as pretty damn top secret. Because pretty dangerous thing there.
Yeah,
it's worrying.
That's not fair. That's not fair in the Guardian of Forever. It's not the Guardian of Forever's fault that it's a time donut that can do that.
It's worrying, actually, the idea of Section 31 ever got hold of that.
Yeah.
But you have to. I get the sense that you couldn't use it too specifically because
of the whole iPod Shuffle.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You're like, well, I'm like an iPod Shuffle, so you can't predict when you're going to go. You might end up there, but you might not.
Yeah, and it's still not really that clear to me how you get back again. You just do. I guess.
Yeah. I don't know, it's weird. It's like, I'm going to go back in time and do this.
Gotta go back in time. Sorry.
And hoping when I've done, the Guardian will retrieve me. It's like, well, is the Guardian cool with you doing that? Or does the Guardian just like, I'm not going to make judgment on the calls on this?
It doesn't seem to have any moral imperative, the Guardian. It just...
Yeah, Biff isn't going to go back and give his earlier self the sports almanac.
Maybe if
you can't do that, right?
Maybe if you're like going to fuck history up, you're like, Guardian, I want to go back and do this. Is this going to be a problem? And the Guardian's like, it's a problem, but it is not a problem. Fine, whatever.
It's not a problem for me.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I'm shielded from changes. Whatever. Yeah. So Yes, that was essentially a description of the final episode as it aired.
Yeah.
This is not the episode as originally submitted in script form.
Yeah.
No.
Harlan Ellison had some fairly interesting ideas of this sort of activities some of the crew would get up to.
Yeah, so as I understand it, the story would have started with a character called Beckwith, who was like a drug dealer on the Enterprise.
Absolutely.
Another character, whose name I can't remember, had exposed him or uncovered his scheme.
He was a user, wasn't he? He was addicted to this stuff.
Somebody had uncovered Beckwith's plan, what he was doing, and Beckwith had murdered this person. And then the policy would be to take Beckwith to the next planet they found and summarily execute him.
What?
This planet is the planet where we find the Guardian of Forever, but it's a planet where they need exosuits. There's no space donut. There are 9-foot aliens that guard a time portal. At some point, Beckwith escapes and jumps through the time portal, and then it kind of marries up with what we see.
Yeah,
I think
the comic adaptation, I think, is maybe not quite. I don't think the suits were there. I'm not sure about the murder, but there's an addict who is reliant on Beckwith supplying him with product, who eventually does expose him. And he makes a play for an escape, beams down. They go down. The 9 beings are there, who are in place of the Guardian Forever, and he jumps through, changing history. Therefore, the landing party immediately try and beam up, only to find that they're on board a completely different sort of a starship.
Space pirates.
Space pirates,
a
indeed.
ship called the Condor, I think.
Yes. So they hole up in the transporter room, try and beam themselves back down, and use the Guardian of Forever. They leave Yeoman Rand, who was written into the story, but because of Grace Lee Whitney's departure from the series was ultimately not used. She basically is there with a phaser holding off and guarding the transporter room to keep them safe, which I quite like, because that's like, hell yeah, Yeoman Rand, you'd be badass. Once back in time, the story's kind of similar. Kirk and Spock go, rather than looking out for a drug-addled McCoy.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Rick is just exploding. Rather than looking out for a Cordrazine-addled McCoy, they're looking out for this bad drug dealer guy. But ultimately, the upshot is the same: that Kirk has to let Edith Kayla die.
I'd read that it's sort of it's the opposite thing that happens. Like Kirk can't do it, so Spock does it instead. Kirk can't go through with it, and he goes to save her, but Spock stops him.
I think the original idea, basically, I think Harlan Ellison's original idea had the character dealing drugs. It had the 9-foot tall aliens. And what we have over the course of what Harlan Ellison really envisaged to what we see is a kind of excuse me, Harlan Ellison's original idea being kind of given to the producers, and they look at it and they kind of go back to Harlan Ellison, and it's kind of passed between writers for a while. So it was given, I think it got some rewrites by DC Fontana and Gene Kuhn and a guy, Steve Calabasas, I think. Steve Calabasas, he added, they all added their own things. Let me just check my notes because I wrote this down. So Steve Calabasas, he swapped out Beckwith for McCoy, and Gene Kuhn, he added the Spock's ears being produced by a rice picker.
Right. Oops.
And then between then, it was also kind of given to Gene Roddenberry and DC Fontana to do some rewrites on. But in terms of its production, it seems like there was a bit of a battle of wills between Harlan Ellison and Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah,
they both seemed pretty difficult. It seemed like a bit of a measuring contest, in terms of they're both kind of like quite
you can see how there are some elements of the original script that simply for a production point of view are going to be difficult to realise at that time. Although, yeah, like the nine
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the space pirates as well. I think the idea of having
You'd have to build a
ship.
whole new set, even if just another transport room would have been a significant cost
Yeah.
situation. And I
Give us your space gold. you varmints? No, that's cowboys, isn't it? You land lubbers.
Space pirates? You thinking?
I'd be mixing my words.
Exactly.
For many a genre. Sorry.
I would also have an issue with the drug dealing, murdering Starfleet crewman.
Oh yeah,
It's not really what I'd expect of my
No.
Starfleet officers.
My issue with, well, not issue, but an idea about that is that in the society where they've eradicated, where they've evolved, say to a point where they don't have the base, you know, that everybody's happy, everyone gets along, people don't kind of give in to their base impulses anymore. Would it be a more libertarian society? Because they can afford to be a more libertarian society, therefore there wouldn't be need for drug dealers because narcotics would be more freely available because people are not going to destroy their lives through that.
Yeah. Just keep your grooviness in your quarters.
Exactly.
Like keep your bigotry in your quarters. Keep your.
Or would it be that people just didn't use drugs because they did? Because if you live in a utopian society, I guess you're not trying to sort of escape anything, and maybe that's
The depiction,
Wait.
The
But
depiction in the comic adaptation was very much the traditional drug dealer, drug user, addict type thing, which would not be in keeping with the utopian society or even the free society where it would be sort of acceptable.
yeah.
Yeah, but you still need somebody to determine what a utopian society is,
Well,
don't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
So if that happens, then I don't know. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
I can see why they got rid of the Beckwith character. I can. I think that McCoy stabbing himself with a big old syringe of drugs weirdly makes more sense. It's a bit sillier, but you can.
It is a really silly opening to.
But also, it
the
isn't.
episode.
It isn't the main point of the episode, is it?
No.
No.
Kind of taking away a lot of the complication.
Yeah.
Focuses.
Yeah, the key thing is the whole sort of moral dilemma.
Yeah, it's a MacGuffin to get this situation where Kirk has to choose between the future he knows and the woman he loves.
Yeah.
Do you think she's the only woman he ever loved?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think he'd probably love Carol Marcus.
Yeah.
I think this episode kind of highlights something that maybe, in terms of the Captain Kirk character, he's generally remembered for being a bit more, being slightly kind of womanizing and swashbuckling and being a character of his time, of the 60s perhaps. But really, in terms of loss, I can't think of a character that's suffered more loss, really. I mean, he gets up to O'Brien levels of suffering, really. He loses in the very next episode, Operation Annihilate. His brother is killed. In the films, he loses his son. So I don't know.
Briefly loses his Spock.
Yeah.
He loses the Enterprise.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I think William Shatner's pretty great in this episode. In terms of his performance, I think he gives a very measured performance.
Yeah, I'd agree. It feels like he sort of reins it in a little bit. There's a bit more subtlety to his performance than we see sometimes, and it's interesting that this is an episode where he does make a logical choice. He makes the choice that Spock would have made, but we see him deal with the anguish that entails. But he still does make that that decision.
There's a very good trilogy of books that follows on from this called Crucible, and each book is focused on one of the three Trinity characters. The first one's McCoy, and what that does very well is it depicts, alongside following McCoy in normal timeline, it depicts what would happen if McCoy lived out his life back in time and they'd never gone and got him. And he basically he builds a life for himself. He marries, and and we also feature the delayed war coming in and stuff. It's quite a good book. Then the Spock one, and then the Kirk one, it basically discusses how Kirk then forevermore has a real issue about time travel and the Garden of Forever, because it always goes back to this great tragedy in his life, the loss of Edith Keeler. So it's quite a fascinating book, and it really delves into his character a bit. And in the end, I think there's a weird time duplicate thing with the Nexus involved in it, but it's definitely worth a read. Anyway.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. Any more to say on the City on the Edge of Forever?
I just, it's a great episode.
It is.
It deserves its acclaim as one of the best episodes of the original series.
Yeah, I think it gets a lot of praise, and I don't think it's overrated. It's very well done. It's a brilliant episode.
I'd agree. I think we've maybe done it a little bit of a disservice by constantly mocking it and picking it apart in this podcast.
I don't think we mock it. We just we kind of use humour to discuss it. I would say
sometimes we pick, but we pick out of love.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I think it really works. I think it's great that central moral conflict, and it's just packed full of interesting ideas, isn't it? Looks really good. Production values are good. You know, the 1930s New York looks.
It's very
great.
well depicted. Yeah.
It's also nice. It's a nicely contained episode. They don't. It's very small. It's vast in its. I don't know, effect, but it's very.
That's a good. It gets a lot in like 50 minutes. It starts off as it starts off as science fiction, and then we're into kind of like a little bit of a 1930s awkward sitcom for a bit. And then it ends as like a moral drama and a tragedy. So I mean, there aren't many shows that could do that. I don't think. Maybe only Star Trek could do that.
Yeah, it's got a real pace to it. I think it's
definitely.
But it doesn't feel rushed. It just feels like there's a lot going on at all times, and the characters come off really well as well. I think Kirk and Spock are great in this. Episode. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it's considered to be one of the best, if not the best.
I always feel that the first season of the original series is perhaps one of the strongest first series for a show, particularly a Star Trek show, and this is definitely one of the big highlights of it.
Yeah.
So it's a high point of a very strong series.
Yeah, and if you're a Star Trek fan who generally sort of focused on the latter Star Treks, you haven't delved into too much of the original series, which some standard Star Trek fans haven't. This is a great one to visit. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's it. I think we've done it.
Yes,
I think
we have
agreed.
That we've got plenty more to say. So thank you very much for listening.
Yes,
everybody.
thank you.
Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back in the future with more.
I would like to say quickly that our good friends over at Whom Pods Destroy did a episode on this very episode on City on the Edge of Forever, and I would have to congratulate them on their much more extensive research onto the original Harlan Ellison story.
Boo! Ours is better. Listen to this.
No, we do very different analysis, and so I think. But if you want some excellent insights into the original stuff, it's totally worth checking their episodes out.
After hours.
After
hours.
Well, of course, after ours, because you've got to the end of ours to hear this bit.
That's it. So why we didn't say?
But I'm just accentuating. Thank you for listening to ours first, listeners.
If Rick had said this at the beginning, we'd be like, Rick, now they're not gonna sit through all of our bullshit. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we'll be back in the future.
We will. Who knows what we're going to talk about next?
We don't.
Well, it'll be Star
We haven't
Trek.
decided.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Star Trek.
Yeah. Something to do with Star Trek, I guess.
Right. See you again soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Do you realize how incredible this is? It's tradition!
You ever noticed her bum? What? Her bum.
Oh no!
Enough of this self-indulgence.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, our website is www.lowerdexradio.co.uk. You can reach us on the Twitters at 10Backward, 10 being the number and backward being the word backward. We're also on Facebook at www.facebook.com/10Backward podcast. You can also email us at crew@lowerdexradio.co.uk. On a personal, individual level, my Twitter is @WiltHerland. Rick Everson's Twitter is @TrekFanRick. And Rick Palmer's Twitter is @Mr. Imhotep.
Hi, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you might consider supporting us. We now have a Patreon where people can pledge small amounts to fund our ongoing projects like keeping our website up to date, new audio equipment as we're going along, and potentially opportunities to expand our content. You can go look at this at patreon.com/lowerdexradio. If you don't feel you can donate but would still like to support us, we would love it if you could subscribe to us on however you get your podcasts, through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or we're on various third-party apps. And if you could leave us a review on any of those, that would be fantastic and we'd be very appreciative.
Thanks again for listening, and please tune in for more podcasts from the 10 Backward crew.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
10 Backward?
Laddie, don't you think you should rephrase that?
10 Backward.
10 Backward.
Killers! Assassins! I won't let you! I'll kill you first! I won't let you!